Hello.
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 Hi there.
Hello and welcome to the radiotimes.com podcast. This week we're going upside down to talk all things Stranger Things. All things Stranger Things. That's what I said. My name is Huw Fullerton. I'm radiotimes.com's sci-fi and fantasy editor. And today I'm joined by our on-demand writer, Ben Allen.
Hello.
And our drama writer, Flora Carr.
Hello.
And before we get started on the new season, which we've all seen and we're very excited, hopefully some of you are watching it. Well, probably not as you listen to this, but some of you have maybe already watched it.
Pay attention if you're watching it.
But before that, we're going to have a little recap of Season 2, I think. So, Ben, what happened in Season 2?
Season 2. Okay, so 11 at the end of Season 1.
Way back.
Died, in quotation marks. She didn't. She came back and she was in the woods eating Eggos, I think. And then she ended up living sneakily with Jim Hopper, the chief. And what else happened, Flora?
So at the beginning, so are we talking about the end of season 1 or season 2?
We're talking about Season 2
now.
Okay, season 2. Well, 11 goes off on a little trip to meet her adoptive psychic sister, 8.
Yes.
She comes back with a full-on goth look, saves the day, and closes the gate to the Upside Down.
Yeah,
Yes.
and throughout the series, the gang have been fighting off the Mind Flayer, who is the new villain after the Demogorgon of Season 1, who is basically a kind of big psychic, I don't know, kind of spider-looking fella.
Yeah.
He's sort of made of
Yeah.
smoke and infected Will when he was in the Upside Down. And the sort of upshot at the end of Season 2 is that they get him out of Will by using exorcist-style, heating and tying down to bed tricks. And yeah, the Mind Flayer is trapped back in the Upside Down. The US government is put back in its place after all its shady goings on, and all the kids have a lovely time at the snowball at their school. But
Yes.
in the Upside Down, you see the Mind Flayer pretty annoyed.
Yes.
Sort of
Raging.
Shaking
his fist.
shaking his smoky fist. Saying, I'll get you next time, kids. And maybe he does,
Maybe he does.
That's what we're dealing
Maybe
with
he
in
does.
Season 3. So just as a sort of little spoiler policy here, we're going to be talking, for the first while of this podcast, we're going to be talking kind of first 4 episodes, sort of general, introductory stuff. Nothing that would really spoil the plot for you if you haven't seen it. But in the last 5-10 minutes or so, we're going to talk about the ending. So we'll give you a warning, we'll give you a klaxon. But yeah, probably if you haven't seen it yet, tune out for those last bits. Don't tune out for the first bits, because those bits are going to be great for all the family.
Hot bits.
Hot bits, as we often say.
What was that?
So we should say this series is a little bit different. It's set at a different time of year. The last series was set around Halloween, kind of wintry. This jumps forward 8 months. We're in summer. We're in
4th of July.
4th of July kind of week, I think.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the week leading up to 4th of July.
Yeah.
Part of the season takes place on 4th of July, and it's 1985 now.
Yeah.
So the kids are, we believe, around 13 or 14. They're becoming somewhat hormonal. You see Mike and 11 doing a lot of smooching in the early stages.
Too much smooching.
Yeah.
Too much smooching?
Too much smooching. It
I
really
think so.
puts poor Hopper off.
It does. Hopper goes full, like, kind of stereotypical.
Overbearing father.
Yeah, totally.
He's
Quite
raging.
frustrating.
And he's not great at communicating that. So he tries his best, and he tries to get a bit of help from Joyce Byers, who's actually, by the way, this season, calmer, which is nice,
She's in it a lot more, I think, and she's sort of more. She's less like kind of, I'm worried about Will, and she's kind of proactive and kind of helping out with the missions and stuff in a way that she maybe
Exactly.
wasn't.
Yeah, she's a lot more assertive, and she seems a lot more cleverer than Hopper.
Yeah, which is cool. Like, that kind of gives you a better sense of the dynamic, because he's the kind of man of action, right? The kind of
Yeah.
See, this is one of the issues that I had within the first half of Stranger Things 3, in that I didn't think of Hopper as that kind of bring a gun to a sword fight kind of guy.
Sure.
I thought of him as a bit more sort of intellectual, a bit more brooding, and he is a lot more aggressive, I think, in this season.
He does cold cock about like 5 different people in the first series.
Yeah.
Like, sort of goes, oh yeah, yes, whack, punches them in the face when they're not looking.
Yeah.
But I
and-
think it's become a bit more of a kind of cliche in this one, and there's not the kind of thought behind it, I find.
I get what you mean. I mean, he has like full on choreographed fight scenes with people in this one, which
Yeah.
which I don't think he's had before. Like sort of Indiana Jones style fist fights.
Yeah, and a lot of punching before thinking, I
Yeah.
find, which annoys Joyce.
It does.
And me.
My only issue with Hopper is that he's winning fights that he definitely wouldn't win on a physical man for man basis. I just don't buy it. But I mean, we love to see Hopper win.
Well, you talk about plot armor, but maybe he has like plot knuckle dusters.
Yeah.
You know, he's not protected from the plot necessarily, but he has, you know, extra melee damage.
Yes, I think that's
Nice.
probably correct.
Thanks. We should also talk about a few of the other characters who are
Yes.
kind of going through this long hot summer of love. That's what I'm
I
calling
like
it.
it. I like it.
We have Lucas and Max are still going semi-strong.
Yeah.
In that they're together, but they also keep breaking up because Lucas is, as ever, kind of
A bit silly.
a bit silly. He's a
Yeah.
bit blunt and rude, and that doesn't always pay off very well.
Yeah.
And poor old Will just wants to still be playing D&D.
Yes.
Like back in season 1.
There's a bit where quite sad image of him dressed up in his, like, I don't know, wizard costume. And the
Yeah.
other lads are like, I want to go and kiss
Will
my
the
girlfriend,
Wise.
mate.
Yeah, it's genuinely heartbreaking. It's one of just on a general note, the more emotional stuff this season is to do with the interpersonal drama than anything to do with the sort of big sci-fi, you know, alternate dimension plot, which kind of always been the case, but I think I noticed it especially this time.
Yeah, definitely.
And who else is there? Oh yeah, also we have Dustin has been at camp and he has a new girlfriend at
Or
camp.
so he claims.
says.
You've never met her. She goes to a different school.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
It's such a classic trope of teenagers, you know.
Exactly.
Oh, I met this girl at camp. Yeah, sure thing, mate.
And who else have we got? We got Joe Keary's Steve Harrington. I just called him Joe because we're friends.
So my pal Joe.
Yeah.
Joe Keery.
Steve
I'd love to be friends with Joe Keary. in
Fabulous.
fairness.
Who wouldn't?
Steve Harrington is now, he didn't get into college, so he's now working at an ice cream shop.
Scoops Ahoy.
Yes.
How
and
good
he
is that
wears
name?
a silly little sailor hat and sailor shorts.
I
For the
think
entire series.
Yeah, he does. He never takes it off.
No.
And his hair is his best quality. Everyone
Yeah.
knows that.
He has to go against company policy to unlock his raven tresses for the masses.
he is Steve
He's a
the
corporate
Hair
man.
Harrington.
Yeah, which was he always called that?
I don't know. I've noticed it a lot more in this season.
Yeah. They do
Robin
say
certainly
it.
calls him that.
Robin says it, making fun of him. Oh, we should also introduce Robin. So
Yes.
Robin is Steve's colleague at Chips Ahoy, or Scoops Ahoy.
Yeah.
Chips Ahoy is the actual cookie brand, I think. And she's played by Maya Hawke. She's the daughter of Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke. And as I wrote in my review, I think she's absolutely brilliant. She's got like the best qualities of both her mother and her father, who are just like two of the, you know, like best actors of the last 25 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, she gets involved in ways we don't want to ruin yet, but she's definitely a big part of the season, and I thought she was really fun.
Yeah, she's definitely a highlight, I think. Like she's sort of a new member of the gang, and she kind of stands out. She's probably the biggest newcomer, although there are a few other newcomers as well, aren't there? Like, well, there's the mayor.
Played by Kerry Elwes.
We looked up the name before.
We
looked
did.
at
We had
Did you
to look
get it
at
to
how to
pronounce it as
yeah,
well?
how
Yeah,
to
yeah.
pronounce it.
Oh, good.
Hugh and I both loved him in The Princess Bride and Robin Hood in Tights.
Men in Tights.
Men in Tights. Sorry. Yeah, he is like a actor of the kind of 80s era. So it is a kind similar to sort of Sean Astin. He's kind of an Easter egg in himself.
Totally, and Winona Ryder to an extent, you know, like
Yeah.
bringing these sort of actors from that period in and giving them new things to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
He's
no,
kind of a cartoony villain, that Mayor Klein character.
he's like a classic sleazy politician. He's
Yeah.
cutting deals behind the scenes,
Yeah.
all this stuff. But he's a bit of fun. He's not in it too much.
He was in Ella Enchanted and he played a similar kind of sleazy
Right.
politician-y character.
He's typecast
Yeah.
already. And then we have a character who's not new, but who gets a very expanded role this year, who is Erica, Luca's little sister, who was a bit of an internet sensation in season 2 for her witty put-downs. I'm
She's
gonna say.
sassy.
She's sassy.
She is. Played by Priya Ferguson. She's definitely a scene stealer.
Yeah, and she actually has quite a lot to do this too. She's kind of like, again, like Robin, kind of an extra member of the gang. And she kind of, I think now that the younger actors are kind of growing up a bit, she sort of fulfills the, you know, cute little kid quotient that they're slightly losing. I mean, there are a couple of flashbacks this season to the first season, and you're reminded of how cute Eleven and the, you know, the little boys were.
Oh.
Yeah.
And they're not
So
now.
so much younger.
I mean, they're still kind of
They're
cute. but
horny. They're too horny to be cute.
Official, the tagline, the Stranger Things 3. And believe it or not, I haven't talked about all the characters yet because we also have Nancy and Jonathan,
yes.
who are still
Yeah.
a thing. And basically, they're working for the local paper. Jonathan's doing some photography stuff and sort of just brooding out of shot, not doing very much in the story. And Nancy is walking around kind of trying to solve mysteries, as she's done every season, but now she's getting sexist abuse
Yes.
Yes.
for
From-
trying to make a difference.
They're both working as interns in the local newspaper.
That's right.
And she's encountering a lot of sexism there.
There's a group of male journalists who cackle at her and call her Nancy Drew, and it's just a very sad situation for her. And Jonathan doesn't seem to mind because he just loves hiding in the dark room. That's very on brand for him, just being in the dark room.
As a side note, we talk about all the sort of blast from the past nostalgia of Stranger Things and its 80s setting. Imagine a local paper. Imagine a local paper with that much staffing.
The good times.
Ricky Gervais's afterlife is still like forgetting that is crazy to have just a quite a well run local paper just thriving.
Yeah, doesn't happen. That's kind of where we pick up with everybody, isn't it? We sort of see, Michael and Eleven are kind of, inseparable, and Hopper's not too pleased about it. Dustin's kind of a bit nonplussed when he comes back, and he's not the center of attention. It's kind of a lot of hormonal stuff going on. A lot more kind of romantic stuff, because there's a bit of a romance thing between Joyce and Hopper this series as well. Which there's always been a bit of, but it's never been so pronounced.
They leaned into it, early on as well. It's kind of
Ben, you were talking earlier about how it feels a bit odd that sort of Joyce is still obviously recovering from the fact that Bob was sort of torn apart by demodogs.
8 months previously.
Just 8 months previously, and she does have flashbacks to that moment, and it does feel at times a bit kind of incongruous that Hopper's obviously trying to make something happen between their relationship.
He's a bit like, when are you going to move on? It's like
Get over it.
give her a year. Jeez.
That's tough.
But we should. The funny thing is, I think it's a sign of the strengths of this show that we've basically spent quite a long time chatting about all the characters and where they're at in their interpersonal things. But this is a sci-fi show, right? There's this huge sci-fi plot, and
there is a plot.
There is a plot, yeah. And this year it's kind of interesting because it's sort of in the background, possibly more so than even in the other series. Because in series 1, obviously, it was never in the background for the kids because they're looking for Will from the out. Whereas this is kind of like, basically in episode 1, and I don't think this doesn't count as a spoiler, but we meet some Russians. We meet some damn Russians, some Ruskies.
And they love it. They love making those comments about the Russians. That kind of like deep-seated hatred that was just in all these 80s movies.
Yeah, it's quite fun. It is fun. They always say the Russians. They never say like these guys. Always say the Russians have done this. And basically they're trying to open their way back into the Upside Down right after it was closed just last year, and that kind of is what, as we've seen in the trailers, the Mind Flayer kind of escapes again. I mean, it's a little unclear, at least at the start, whether he's always stuck around in our world or whether he's escaped again. And basically, I mean, I'm sort of, it's difficult to talk about in this section of the podcast without spoiling anything. But I don't think it's a spoiler if it's in the trailer, right?
No, definitely. I think that's fine.
Yeah, because it's suggested in the trailer that Billy, played by Dacre Montgomery, who's Max's kind of slightly bullying older brother, who had a kind of small part in season 2 but didn't get up to too much. He ends up being kind of one of the Mind Flayer's victims, hosts, victims. Yeah, and it's quite interesting because I was definitely among those wondering what the point of that character was in season 2. And if that's what they were planning the whole time, I guess it kind of makes more sense. I don't know, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I do think it would lend itself to a potentially sort of redemptive arc.
Yes.
As such.
Yeah, I thought he was... Actually, it was interesting to see him as it goes on through the series. You actually see a bit more of him and you understand his character a little bit more and there was a little bit of that in season 2 because you saw his dad was abusive to him. But I think there's more justification for his character being seemingly, I don't know if evil's the word, but unkind anyway, like terminally unkind.
Yeah, he makes for a sort of receptive host for the Mind Flayer.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah, he has some darkness in him, which possibly Will didn't. Which, maybe why that didn't quite click in the same way in season 2.
That's another thing we should talk about, actually, that Will, this season, gets somewhat of a break, but he now has the Harry Potter-esque power of sensing the Mind Flayer in the back of his neck.
Yeah, he gets like goose pimples.
It was endlessly entertaining of like, they're like in this house and like there's here all this thumpy and he goes, he's here. And I'm like, thanks, Will.
Oh, you got a tingle, did you?
Yeah.
I heard the steps.
My Flayer sense is tingling. But that's quite funny. It is nice for him to have a slightly less miserable time. I mean, there is still there's a scene of him in the pouring rain demolishing his his den. And I was like, they do just love to put this poor kid in like gunk and like, being like tied down with straps and drenched in the rain.
He does it well.
He does a good sad face.
He does,
He
like
does.
like distraught, like absolute distraught.
It's the puppy dog eyes.
And the
I
hair.
think.
Oh, very much so.
He's got a little bowl cut.
He does have the most unfortunate haircut.
It's a
in
terrible
this.
haircut.
Yeah. Is that a wig or is it actually cut like that? Do you
I
think?
hope it's a wig. It's interesting you said earlier though about the characters being very prominent, or just like you can see that what they're doing is developing the characters. Right, it's the first half of the season, and I think they really did need to do that because we haven't really seen Eleven in the real world. You know, like just living her life.
It's easy to forget that watching this season, but I was sort of looking back through season 2 stuff, and yeah, obviously she was like, you know, kind of a fugitive for all of season 2, kind of hiding, and she's still not 100% part of everything. Like she's not supposed to go to the mall at one point, you know, and it's sort of, she's kind of still living in the woods in the cabin, but she's a little bit more living her life, and she could pretty much speak now. I mean, sometimes she can't.
It's interesting. It's like always for comedic value that she doesn't understand like idioms and stuff like that. And Joe was like, "Oh, this isn't one, but it's something like, like hold phone, you know, like why would I hold the phone? That kind of thing." She still doesn't understand language, but I guess it's only been 8 months of being properly immersed in the world.
Do you find it odd that we were talking before about how in season 2 she visited her psychic sister? Like that is not referenced at all within season 3.
I was going to bring that up actually.
Neither is her like kind of cooler sort of 80s goth makeover. That doesn't stick around. She goes completely back to the sort of whole like Hopper's like borrowed baggy plaid shirts look. It's as though they've completely sort of pasted over that.
Well, it was quite an unpopular episode.
Yeah.
In that it was, people said it was a bit of a, it just sort of, was it the penultimate episode?
It was there was 2, I think. It was the 7th, and then there was 8 and 9 afterwards,
cool. Yeah, so I think it was kind of like, it slightly sapped the pace at the sort of tail end of the last series, even though I think it gave her some good character development.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see why they left it, but it is a bit funny because there's this whole like gang of other powered people around out in the world, and we're just going to sort of pretend that didn't happen.
And it does feel like that character development, as you said, was just kind of thrown out the window.
It's
again.
true. It's interesting. It's been a lot longer for us than it has been for those characters, which is interesting. It's been not quite a couple of years, but you know, almost a couple of years.
It's been a year and 8 or 10 months or something like that.
Yeah, it was only eight months for them. So it is interesting. We will forget stuff. And I think maybe the Duffer brothers are slightly relying on us not quite remembering how it all came together. Sorry, you were going to say something?
I think the thing is that they're like fans themselves. I think they kind of really want to please their fans. Like potentially to a fault. I think there was elements of season 2 that felt a bit fan servicey to me, but I think once they realized how unpopular that was and how the fans were not into it, they were like, okay, let's just leave that be. And I mean, I think maybe we will return to 8, 9, whatever, the other numbers, the other super paired people.
The magic numbers.
The magic numbers, which would be a good name for them. We might return to them in the future, but I think, for now, that's obviously brushed under the carpet. Yeah,
I mean, we speak about fan service and the Duffers being fans of things. We should probably talk a little bit about, you know, as ever, Stranger Things is stuffed with pop culture references, right? Easter eggs, you know, callbacks, things like that. I mean, we see they go to a showing of Back to the Future and what's the zombie movie thing?
Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead, yeah. And we see, you know, like some vintage toys, you know, Hopper's watching Magnum P.I. at one point, and then he ends up dressing like Magnum for a good part of the series, which is quite fun. And we also... I mean, there's just so much stuff. We were talking about this earlier. It's so difficult to catalogue.
I think, well, a lot of the Russian stuff, I mean, I think there's hints of Red Dawn in there.
Yeah.
I think, like, naturally of Rocky 4, because that's just one of the, like, the Cold War movie that sticks out the most to me. I think the Ivan Drago character, there's kind of echoes of him in... the character that's also probably based on the Terminator.
Yeah, I have no name for that character. I've just got him as the sort of Terminator-looking guy. He's the sort of lead Russian thug. He's the like enforcer who Hopper kind of crosses swords with.
And he looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And he kind of moves
to a
like
startling
him.
degree.
He sort of looks like a slightly like a sort of Aldi version, you know.
Yeah.
Or you know other you know shop bought versions of Arnold Schwarzenegger are available. And he sort of moves quite oddly as well. Like he's sort of broken a leg or something, which I think is supposed to be slightly robotic.
Even his accent is, I feel, more Schwarzenegger than Russian.
Yeah. Totally, yeah.
It's shameless. Like I think they know exactly what they're doing. They're really just leaning into it. They're going, we know we're doing the Terminator here, so let's just do the Terminator, you know?
Yeah, it totally works, I think.
It was fun, yeah.
So this is a slight segue, but you guys, what do you guys think? What's the kind of overall first impression of this series? How do you think it's going to go down, and what do you think? How do you think people will compare it to season 2? Say.
I thought I really enjoyed it. I definitely like how they've sort of moved into a kind of sort of those zombie tropes that we were talking about earlier, but sort of with a definite twist, which I won't spoil. I liked how they played the Day of the Dead like very early on in the first episode, and then that kind of comes back. I think I've touched on this earlier, I wasn't the biggest fan of Hopper's characterization at the beginning of this first season. I thought he was a bit too overbearing, a bit too aggressive, just a little bit more stupid, I think. I always thought of him as quite a sort of suave character. Well, maybe not suave, but a bit more sort of brooding, clever, underestimated by other characters, whilst now he just goes in like all guns blazing.
Literally at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What about you, Ben?
I just absolutely loved it. Like especially, and it felt a little bit slow at the start, just plot wise, but I just loved the way they create that like 1980s summer feel. Like it just kind of washes over you. It's really evocative of like, I don't know, summers. Like if you've ever, in Ireland we didn't have amazing summers, but the odd time you get one and it was the best. And like the first episode and bits of the second episode, the camera's just kind of like roaming through the city and like just going from the public pool to the mall, which is it's a major new setting in season 3. And just following these characters as they go about. They're in a field at one stage where they're trying to put up radio transmitters so Dustin can talk to his fake girlfriend. I loved all of that. There's loads of really good music in it as well. Like there's like some Madonna, some Foreigner in there. There's like loads of needle drops in that first episode that I really enjoyed. And then like in terms of the plot, like I think we've all kind of said in the past that it's kind of almost secondary to us. It's all about the characters in this. And the plot is like, to me, it's kind of shaped a little bit in the same way as season 2. So there's not much of a difference there, but it really does build as it goes on. And even though you kind of, I think there were some things that surprised me in it. You kind of see where it's going for the most part. I just thought it was really fun, and it got really exciting towards the end, and also ultimately quite upsetting. There was some very emotional moments in the last episode and the episode leading up to it as well. So no, I'm all in. I loved it.
See, for me, I think that ending is kind of what tied it all together, because I was enjoying it, but I kind of had my doubts about how slow it was and how kind of tangential a lot of the storylines were to each other. But it does tie together very nicely at the end. And I think they did pull it off, and I think I preferred it to season 2. Again, it's been a while since I watched it, but yeah, I mean, one thing that I wasn't such a fan of this year was I do like the comedy in Stranger Things. I think it's part of it, and there's some great bits. Like there's a bit in the last episode with Dustin, and he's singing something, and we won't spoil that in this section. But generally speaking, there felt like, at least this year, there were a lot more moments where the characters were kind of in danger, and they were like quipping. They were like quipping, and they were like, razzing each other and sort of slightly being a bit casual about it. And there's maybe an extent to which this is the third time they've done something like this. Maybe they are getting a bit more jaded, even the children. But also I was a bit like, time and place. Like, like stop talking about your relationship right now. Yeah. There is a giant, monster careening through this hospital.
Terrifying monster thing, like absolutely.
What was it terrifying? Did you find it really scary?
I just think it's so gross and massive that like, I mean, watching it on screen, I wasn't terrified by it. But if you were in the environment, with it, you'd be like,
in real life, it would
I'm not going to make any jokes.
Oh
now.
yeah, of course.
Yeah. But I mean, what do you guys think about the tone? Speaking of that, I mean, Flora, you've sort of suggested that you didn't think it was that scary this year.
In comparison to previous seasons. So I think I found the first season the scariest because of that kind of Jaws-esque element where you don't see the Demogorgon for a long time. Whilst with this, we see glimpses of the eventual monster quite early on, and even then it's more sort of gory, as it were, than straight out scary. And
yeah, I mean, this is something they said before the series, that this would be the kind of grossest series yet, and there is quite a lot of kind of body horror, I think, more so than before, like stuff inside you, and things going wrong, and like sort of horrible stuff with skin and bones and all this stuff. So enjoy that. But I kind of take your point. Like it's scarier when you don't see the monsters, but also they've kind of played that card, haven't they? With the Demogorgon, like.
And this was the next step. And again, with the zombie thing, I thought it was a clever move.
I guess it's also like you could look at almost like, this is a very broad thing that I've not really thought about, but if you look at it like the Alien trilogy, it goes from the alien, you never see it. It's this sort of creature in the dark that's snatching at you. To it's like an action movie and there's loads of little aliens, to the third one, I think it's the third one, Ridley actually gets impregnated with the alien, right?
Okay.
So that's kind of the body horror kind of element, which is slightly present in this. So maybe there's a little bit of aliens in there. Who knows? So I think this would be a good point to slightly draw towards our spoiler section of the podcast.
Yes.
So basically, if you haven't seen all of Stranger Things, and we mean all of it, like watch every second of every episode right to the end, then
including the credit sequence,
of the last episode, then if you haven't watched all of that, then don't listen to any more. We'll know.
Get out.
Get out.
Go.
Get out now. It's not safe. We're going to get you. So we'll just play a spoiler klaxon now, and then we're going to discuss some more in-depth plot details about the end. So here we go. That was really noisy, I'm sure.
Very loud.
Oof.
Ow, my ears.
Oh, my ears. So that was the official RadioTimes.com spoiler klaxon, available on iTunes. It's not. So basically, we should talk a little bit about the end. It's weird because we haven't got into loads of depth about what happens in the series, but if you're listening to this, you know what's happened in the series.
Yeah, you've watched this.
So we can kind of jump to it. So the big question is Hopper really dead?
Yeah. Oh my
No,
God.
he's not. He's not.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
He's the American.
He's the American.
He's got to be the American.
So I don't know why I'm going to explain this, because if you're listening to this, you know. But basically, the end of the series ends with Joyce having to sacrifice Hopper to close the rift, I'm going to call it, to the gate to the Upside Down. And we don't see his body, but it's implied that he's killed, along with all the other Russian technicians who are around.
Melt. We see Russians properly melting.
Yeah. And so there's no way he could get out of that. But you don't see him die. It kind of just jumps ahead a couple of months. And then in the post-credit scene, we cut to a facility in Russia, and they're taking someone out to a horrible fate from their cell, and they're about to open a cell, and someone goes, no, not the American. And that is what they've referred to him specifically as the whole time. How he ends up in Russia versus Hawkins is a bit of a mystery. I kind of thought we were going to cut to him trapped in the Upside Down, like he got sucked in at the last minute. But maybe he did, maybe he didn't
got out in Russia. Russian Upside Down, yeah.
Because, Russian Upside Down, yeah. Because something else has come out of the Upside Down in Russia, which is...
The Demogorgon.
Demogorgon.
Yeah. So if the Demogorgon from season 1, or a different one, presumably, because that one got nuked.
Strangely happy to see his disgusting face.
Yeah, it's comparatively,
God,
he's a real beauty. He's a real beauty compared to what we see in this series. He's more aesthetically pleasing, I think.
He's anthropomorphized or whatever that is. He's very human-like.
His
horrible little flower face.
His sort of
just come.
Yeah, flower face. Not as nice as a flower.
Yeah, but there was a bit of a tease of this earlier in the season because when Dustin and Erica are down in the Russian base, Erica kind of, having been filled in on the whole story, notes there's these big cages, and she's like, how big is a Demogorgon supposed to be again? And I expected a Demogorgon to be there then, and there wasn't. So this maybe suggests that they kind of had encountered them somehow. I don't really understand, because they never actually opened the gate.
I think the gate had been sort of partially open, so what we're not quite sure is whether the sort of Russian guys in the rubber suits went through that small crack in the gate, or whether they were successful in Russia at some point, but then it snapped shut again.
That's possibly a good point, because they do start it in Russia and they almost manage it, and then they only move to Hawkins because the barrier between worlds is a bit weaker.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I mean, maybe they got it out in Hawkins and then shipped it to Russia for some reason. The Demogorgon. I don't really know why.
Did we ever figure out why the Russians wanted to get into the Upside Down? They didn't really even try to explain that.
No, it's like the space race, but for other dimensions or parallel universes, whatever you say.
And I guess from what that post-credits thing suggests is they're trying to maybe turn them into weapons like those monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's much controlling the Mind Flayer. Mind Flayer controls you.
Exactly. I mean, I wonder if maybe it's sort of like the US Department of Energy were the kind of villains in the first couple of series. Maybe it's similar to whatever they were trying to do in terms of accessing, stuff there. I mean, look, there's, it's real estate, right? Lots of prime real estate, lots of unoccupied gross houses, covered in things.
It's kind
of a bit too dusty.
Yeah, a lot of dust flying around the air.
Dusty buns.
But that's a less important point.
Yes.
The rest of the stuff in the finale, I mean, I found that really upsetting. What a sad ending. Okay, say that they didn't give us that post-credits thing, which I actually missed. I didn't realize till a few days later.
So that's why we say to watch to the end.
So I was just very upset it was like, because, they're all, so 11 is going to move with the Byers to, I don't think they said where.
Just out of Hawkins.
Out of Hawkins. And also Jonathan, who's a grown-up for some reason, is going with his mother and brother and 11 and leaving his girlfriend behind in Hawkins. And
11's leaving Mike behind.
11's leaving Mike. So everyone's being split apart, and it was a very emotional goodbye. I think that's quite a sad goodbye, also knowing that we're probably going to have to wait another year and a half until we see another season. It's like, oh wow, that's kind of a massive contrast to season 2, where everything was just lovely. 11 and Mike
pretty wrapped up, and it could have ended there, I think. Whereas this is more like season 1, where there's definite threads to be picked up. I think you could also almost end it, but you kind of wouldn't want to in quite the same way.
No.
There's also the thread of 11 loses her powers.
Oh yes, of course.
When exactly do you guys think that she lost them? Because I think it was when the she pulled that little bit of Mind Flayer out of her leg. I think that was sucking at her energy somehow.
Yeah.
I remember when it was sort of glowing a bit, and she used the last of her powers to get it out, and then I think that was the cut-off point, and then after that she couldn't lift the car and things like that.
Because she does sort of, when she's being choked by the possessed Billy, have a little flashback to what she saw in his head, but I mean, is that just a flashback to what she saw in his head when she did have her powers?
Mm-hmm. I think that was just her remembering.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's because I think it's a little unclear, and also it feels a bit random in that she doesn't seem to have any trouble with her powers while the slug is in her. It's only when she's removed it that she does. She's able to move a car, which is pretty good. I wonder as well if the part of the reason that they've taken away her powers is so that she couldn't look for Hopper, using her kind of astral plane sort of slightly watery, black mental space where she can find anybody, including the Demogorgon. Maybe they've, partially tried to sort of keep the Hopper mystery alive. Maybe they want to anyway. Yeah. But it's it's kind of nice as well because it's nice for her not to be defined by that.
Absolutely.
By her powers and by what she can do to people and what use she is to people. She can actually just be a normal kid now.
Definitely, exactly. And I love the Max and 11 montage in the shopping mall where it was Max was telling her this is you finding yourself outside of what Hopper thinks of you and what Mike thinks of you. And I do think 11 sort of stepped into sort of more a more adult, mature version of herself in this season.
Do you think that 11 as a character and the show could survive if they say they do season 4 and they never give her powers back? I think it could be difficult as a storytelling thing.
I hadn't thought about that.
I think they probably will, but it'll be quite late in the season.
Mm-hmm. No, I think they will give her powers back, but could they potentially not? As in,
if they didn't, how would it even work?
Yes, would it work? Because my theory would be that they need to have something like that, because otherwise they're just a group of humans.
Yeah. Well, she's definitely the MVP of that group, although it is everyone except her who manages to defeat the Mind Flayer in the end, which is kind of nice. They kind of save her.
Yes.
In the end, which is quite nice, I think, because after she saved them, 2 series in a row.
Yeah. For sure.
But yeah, no, I'm interested to see how that works out. And yeah, I mean, it possibly could. I
think so. It would up the stakes. It would be more scenes like in season 2 where Steve and the kids were trapped in that sort of abandoned car field.
Equally, do you think that they could just not bring Hopper back? I think as a story, I think it loses a lot if Hopper's not in it.
I think they'd struggle.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of a mystery it's going to be, because remember at the end of season 1, 11 seemed to have vanished.
Yeah.
And it was where's 11 gone? And then season 2, she's just in it. She's just she survived.
Yeah,
she's in the woods now.
Oh, did you not realise she's alive? Yeah, totally.
So it's kind of I wonder if it's even going to be a thing. Although maybe it will be. I don't know. There was more of a hint that she was alive in season 1, I think, than there is that Hopper is alive. Although maybe not.
I think the thing is, when I was watching the post-credit, I was like, okay, the American, they're going to show him in a minute. And they just never did. So I was still a bit I wanted something more. I wanted a little bit more of a tease.
Yeah.
But I think that was sufficient.
I think they've left some options open there. Whether they want to bring him back, whether they bring him back in a slightly different way than we're expecting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all quite interesting. It'd be interesting to see where it goes next in general. I mean, what do you guys, just quickly before we finish, what do you guys think we could see in a season 4, and what would you like to see?
I think more development of Robin's character. I thought she was amazing in this season, and hopefully there'll be more sort of Steve and Robin banter. I think we'll definitely see the two sort of parties, as it were, like separated first and then kind of joining together somehow. But I'm just trying to work out.
You mean the people who've moved away
Yes,
and the people
sorry.
who stayed? Yeah.
Like the buyers plus 11, and then I'm trying to work out sort of what big event could happen. Maybe it will happen in Christmas, and they'll have like a Christmas Strangest Things
special.
Yeah.
Well, they could do. I mean, they have made much of different settings, like times of year in the past, like a lot of pumpkins and stuff for Halloween, Halloween costumes, you know.
Maybe we're looking at like stuff. Christmas 2021.
Could be.
Wow, that feels very, very far away.
Yeah.
That's because it is.
It's worth mentioning, actually, on the thing about Robin's character, we can say in the spoiler now that she comes out as gay when it seems all the way through that she has a thing for Steve.
Yeah.
And
that was a really
brilliant.
good twist.
It was really good because I just really didn't expect it. And I thought that was like, very cool idea for them to put that in.
And the fact that they can have this kind of platonic male-female friendship, which isn't something you see that much on TV, you know, where, you know, it's always a sort of will they, won't they? And kind of you have Dustin throughout the series acting as that commentator saying, oh, these guys, you obviously should get together.
Yeah.
Literally from, you know, episode 1, I think.
Yeah.
So it's quite nice to go in that way. Also, I find it kind of funny that I feel like the writers, the Duffer Brothers and whoever else writes the show, quite enjoy dunking on Joe Keery a little bit. He spent the entire series wearing a sailor outfit. They keep on talking about how often he gets beaten up by different people.
He can't win a fight,
Well, he does win a fight this series, and then he finally finds love, and she's actually not interested at all. I thought it was kind of appropriate. Like, he is just continually thwarted. I hope Steve finds love.
Me too. I want to see that too.
I think he's better for Nancy than Jonathan. I'm Team Steve.
Really? I mean, Jonathan has no like real redeeming qualities.
I forget about him, to be honest. Yeah. Who? Jonathan who?
Like, you kind of root for him because he's the nerd, and he, I guess Steve was a bit more of a bully character in the first season.
Yeah.
But by the time second and third seasons come around, you're like, oh no, Steve's actually way better.
Yeah. You're like, should have picked Steve.
Let's change that one.
Yeah. So hopefully an expanded role, Steve as the hero in season 4. I mean, he already was doing more than Jonathan in this series, I think. Jonathan was just sort of tagging along with Nancy. Yeah. Steve's off fighting, you know, he's, you know, investigating Russians.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's up to all sorts.
So. Ruskies.
The pesky Ruskies.
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping to see just a little bit more happiness for poor Joyce. That's 2 love interests killed off.
That's true.
That's terrible. And same for 11. I mean, her mum died. Now her father figure has passed away.
But he's going to come back. It'll be fine.
Maybe he'll have no memory. Maybe he'll be shell-shocked.
Oh, God.
Maybe he'll be Russian now.
That's too harrowing.
Ooh. This is a real twist. Maybe he'll be genetically spliced with a Demogorgon. Anything could happen.
I hope Will finds some friends to play D&D with him, because his other mates are too interested in making out to play with him.
And poor Will. I think that's generally the subtitle of every Stranger Things series. As I said, poor Will. Although less so this year.
Less so, yeah, for sure.
I think that slightly random meandering comment about Will is probably the perfect point for us to wrap things up, because we've chatted for quite a while. So please, if you're listening to this and you enjoyed it, check out our other Stranger Things content on radiotimes.com. We've got reviews, we've got some Easter egg stuff, we've got some character profiles, lots of fun stuff. Hopefully we'll all be here at the same time next Stranger Things to talk about Hopper's grand return as the Mecha Demogorgon.
And we'll be wearing Christmas hats.
We'll be wearing Christmas hats. He'll be striding through the snow, fighting off Godzilla.
I'd enjoy that a lot.
It would be great. So I've been Huw Fullerton.
I'm Ben Allen.
And I'm Flora Carr.
And thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.